Thank you, ma'am. Next is A.W. Barlow, followed by Mary Morris, followed by Eunice Barnum. Name and address, sir.
Alvin Wellington Barlow, Sr., 625 West Union Street, Jacksonville, Florida, right across the street from Trinity Rescue Mission. Father, forgive these people, for they know not what they do. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. If you've been homeless ever, or you're homeless right now, please stand up. If you've ever been homeless, or you're homeless now, stand up.
Mr. Barlow.
These are the people that,
I'm going to ask
through the
that you
chair,
all please.
through the chair, these are the people
Thank you all for coming, but
that I'm
we ask that you
representing.
please sit down and that we do not have any displays.
Through the chair,
Greatly appreciate
these are the
it.
people that I represent.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And in the name of Jesus, I bless this council to do the right thing for the right reasons. I bless you in the name of Jesus to vote your conscience and do what you think is right. But I'm going to prophesy something right now. So you think that this law is going to stop people from panhandling, people who are starving, people who have children to feed. You're highly mistaken. Within 1 year, you're going to see that this is not doing anything but pouring gasoline on a match. That's what it's doing. I've been practicing law since 1985. I have people who went to prison for felonies telling me going into jail to serve 5, 10 years in prison, that when they get out, they're going to get it right. Murder is against the law, is it not? Jacksonville is a capitalistic murder city of the state of Florida. Robbery is illegal. Still have robberies. Rape. Arson. Those are still, you cannot legislate a person's behavior. Only God can do that. And may he bless you to do the right thing for the right reasons. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Next is Mary Morris, followed by Eunice Barnum, followed by Essie Howard.
22823.
So item 46, 2023-0005. We have the same speakers if Ms. Nolan's over there. Mr. Emerson, did you want to speak again? All right, Mr. Michaelis, did you want to speak again?
This public hearing is closed. An additional public hearing will be held 22823.
All right, that brings us to the third reading of ordinances. These are items that have already had their public hearings and are ready for action. Starting with item 47, 2022-0416. Move the amendment.
We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Can someone please explain the amendment?
Through the President, the amendment corrects the dollar figures to reflect the amounts being appropriated to complete the remaining $278 million worth of BJP projects. It corrects the borrowing amount increase from $85,063,552.37 to $154,869,342.48. It attaches a revised Exhibit 1 to include the additional projects funded via borrowing. It attaches a revised Exhibit 2 to reflect the updated project costs funded through an increase in borrowing and the reappropriating dollars within current BJP projects. A revised Exhibit 3 is attached to reflect the increase in borrowing, and a revised Exhibit 4 is attached to reflect the changes in project funding to match the BT.
Thank you. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed have the same right. The amendment carries.
Move the bill as amended.
A motion and a second on the bill as amended. Seeing no one in the queue, please open the ballot and record your vote.
Seventeen yeas, 0 nays.
By your actions, you've approved 2022-0416.
Item 48, 2022-0574. Move the TEU substitute.
Can someone please explain the substitute?
Through the President, the substitute amends sections 804.806 and 804.807 of the Ordinance Code to modify the permitting process for charitable solicitation along designated roadways and establish permitting for indigent persons and other non-commercial solicitors. It reduces the age of allowed solicitation participants from 21 to 18, and it moves the oversight of the permitting process from the Neighborhoods Department to the Public Works Department, extends the permit period from 48 hours to 72 hours, and expands the regulation of pedestrians walking in a roadway to also include riders of animals. The substitute creates a new section 804.1701 to make it unlawful for pedestrians to occupy or remain in a median for an extended period of time physically interact with occupant of a motor vehicle while on the traveled portion of a designated roadway, or utilize the public right-of-way for commercial use. It provides for exemptions including law enforcement, fire and rescue, or other governmental employees or contractors acting within the scope of their lawful authority, and a person performing inspection, construction, maintenance, survey, or other legally authorized services. It also establishes an exemption for a person or entity in possession of a valid solicitation permit and specifies penalties and citation procedures, including a civil penalty of up to $100. The substitute repeals Section 250.118 related to newspaper street sales, gives the Traffic Engineering Division 90 days to develop criteria for issuing permits, designates that the first 30 days after enactment shall be a public education period with only warnings being issued, corrects various Scrivener's errors, and then provides a process for a denied permit.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Ms. Staffopoulos, do you have something to add to that?
Yes, thank you. Through the council president to the council. The TEU substitute also included one additional item that was approved by the TEU committee that's not included in the blue sheet. It added an additional provision that said in the event that a permit is denied, the applicant can request emergency injunctive relief from the Circuit Court of the 4th Judicial Circuit of the state of Florida due to the overriding public interest in preventing unsafe conditions for motorists and pedestrians within the right-of-way of designated roadways as provided as provisional, so therefore no provisional permit shall be issued by the city. Thank you.
All righty, so we're on the substitute. Mr. Carrico, are you on the bill, or do you want to talk on the substitute?
Mr. President, if I may, the substitute is pretty substantial. It's almost like the bill, so I was just going to go ahead and just give my my piece for the substitute leading into the bill, if that's all right.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, sir, for recognizing me. And through the chair, thanks everyone for their patience with this legislation. I think we started meeting on this in March and finally went to committees, went to neighborhoods 3 times, TEU once, where each committee there was a lot of debate, a lot of input, and we got to a place where I think we have a good bill. So I did want to be clear to everyone that this is not an attack on homelessness. This is not an attack. It doesn't outlaw panhandling even in the city of Jacksonville. This basically is a mechanism to keep our citizens safer by regulating some of these activities in the medians, in the public right-of-ways, in our intersections where it's dangerous. As we all know, Jacksonville has recently been named the number 6 most dangerous city in the country for pedestrian injuries and fatalities. So, I feel we can either try to do something about it, or we can stand back and let these things keep happening. And this is a way to just make our streets a little safer. Wanted to highlight JSO's involvement. Through 3 different sheriffs, we've been working through this bill, and they've all had the support of it every step along the way. I've had a lot of help from the Office of General Counsel Representative Gabby Young over there at JSO, and all their officers and leadership, have been involved, including the Blight Department and many others, like Chief Burns, who's out there tonight. So I just wanted to rise to say that I appreciate everyone's support on this, and there's a lot of people standing by for questions if you have them. Thank you.
Got it. And we're still on the substitute. This will be a voice vote on the substitute, and then we can discuss. The substitute is the bill. We can get into discussing the bill as substituted. But I have 2 people on the queue. Do we want to wait until we... Mr. Gaffney, would you like to wait until we get to it? Thank you. All righty. So seeing no one else in the queue on the substitute, all in favor of the substitute, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed have the same right. The substitute, we have 1 nay. Let it be known that Councilmember Precy Jackson is a nay.
Move the bill substituted.
So we have a motion and a second on the bill as substituted. Mr. Boylan, Councilman Boylan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to stand for 2 reasons to share. This is a genuine concern of my constituents. I've heard time and time again about the concerns of folks interacting at the intersections in the Mandarin area. But I also I don't want people to lose sight of the fact that we as a council and as an administration has done a lot to support the homeless in our community. We had Urban Restaurant today. We had an opportunity, and the mayor was recognized for his efforts in supporting the homeless issues in our community. The work that we're doing in the Critical Quality of Life Issues Committee, and I'll be moving forward an effort to do some more work with respect to providing a wraparound, permanent housing wraparound services for the homeless in our community. I don't we need to lose sight of that. This isn't, as Councilmember Carrico said, it's really a public safety issue that we're attempting to address here and not targeting any particular sector of our community. Thank you.
Councilman Diamond, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to rise and explain why I'm going to support this bill. Admittedly, when I first read it, I struggled with it a bit, and then I started to hear from my constituents who overwhelmingly were in favor of it. And so from a public safety point of view, I think this makes absolute sense. It is true that Jacksonville is one of the most dangerous places for pedestrians. And one of the issues we have, especially along Atlantic and along Beach, at least in my district, going into Councilman Bowman's district and into Councilman Carrico's district, is people coming up to cars repeatedly over and over again. And these are some of our busiest intersections. So I think it makes sense to give JSO the power to say that's against the law here in Jacksonville. I would also commend my colleague for carving out something for nonprofits who are properly registered with the city and doing things right, in particular our firefighters who do their Fill the Boot campaign, which I think was a critical fix. And finally, I'll just say this. The reason I struggled with it at first is because, I have a heart and I'm a Christian and I believe that we need to help people who are in need. And so I think the other half of this bill is that we continue to do things like supporting Councilwoman Pittman's nonprofit and other nonprofits and other agencies in our community that help the people that are trying to get help at someone's car, the ones who are legitimately trying to get it. And I just think as we pass this today, we need to keep that in mind, that Sulzbacher is doing a great job and other entities are doing a great job. So let's take the dollars that we might have handed out our window and hand it to these great nonprofits that are actually doing the work and getting to the people in need first. Thank you.
Councilman Carlucci, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I struggled with this bill a bit too. I admit to being a person who will give money to panhandlers sometimes more often than not. And I really don't care what they do with the money. I just give it kind of in an unconditional way because everybody has their own story. But I do think Councilman Carrico did a good job making this an enforcement tool, but not with a hammer. I congratulate you on that. So I will support this bill, but I will say this also, and I compliment Councilman Boylan on his critical quality care and your subcommittee members. Would love to have been on that committee. But we're going to really need to step up our game on prevention, on mental health, for prevention, to keep people from becoming homeless. And I'm talking about the panhandlers now. Not all panhandlers are homeless. Some of them have figured out how to make money. I get that. But you know what? Some of them are down on their luck. And so we are taking steps in the right direction on prevention, but I'm going to make it my point to do everything I can to beef up this, not only for panhandling, but for crime in general. You can't just enforce crime and expect it to go away. It won't. We got to get to the root cause of it. And I don't mean to insinuate panhandlers are committing a crime, although I guess if I give money to a panhandler, which I probably still will on occasion, let the panhandler police come and get me, okay? But I do think it's a good bill. I think it's a part of the puzzle, but it's not the biggest part of the puzzle. Prevention is the biggest part of the puzzle, and I'll be happy to work with Councilman Boylan if you'd like.
Thank you. We still have 6 more in the queue. Councilmember Clark Murray, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I, as well as my colleagues, stated earlier the fact that they struggle with this bill. I struggle with this bill as well because I initially think about the sports teams who solicit at the intersections to support themselves in regards to if they're going to a championship or if they're just trying to get uniforms to get that additional dollars they need in order to be able to get those uniforms or to go to that championship game. And at the same time, I listened to my colleagues talk about the different types of panhandling in terms of you have some aggressive panhandlers. I personally have not experienced that. Most of the panhandlers that I've experienced, they will weave some little cross and they will want to give that in exchange for $1 or whatever it is that you want to give them. So I did struggle with this bill as well because I want those sports teams to be able to raise their funds. However, it's more than just sports teams out there. Most recently, I was privy to a story of a homeless family who happens to hang, in a sense, at a intersection. And during the Texan game, one of the players, he just happened to be driving through that area, and he decided to give that family a whole month's worth of stay at a hotel. Well, there were some other people who were there too, and they were privy to, they gave that family clothes and other things, and lo and behold, the next day they were back on that corner panhandling. So for them, it's more of it's a game. They're trying to get money. It's not, and not having a legitimate need. They're trying to flim-flam people. And so I listened to the different aspects of panhandling, and so I thought about the safety aspect as well, and so I've decided to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gaffney Jr. You recognize.
All right. Through the chair. I think for me it's just the timing of the bill. It's at the post-pandemic. A lot of constituents, citizens, is suffering right now. I think for my district, District 7, and maybe District 8, it doesn't work for my district. I could see the rise in incarcerations. I could see discrimination. I could see resisting arrest. I'm not sure if we doing ourselves a disservice by passing this bill, at least in my district. Councilman Carlucci, you hit it right on the head, and you said we got to tackle the root, and I definitely agree. I think we should be pouring resources and saying why these people are homeless, and why they asking food, why they asking for money, housing, instead of finding them, arresting them. Another issue I have with the bill, I'm concerned about JSO. We right now, we shortage of officers, and if we have JSO arresting the homeless, who gonna be in the community? So that's a big concern I have. If they out on the corner, it's a crime going on, we short. So to close, I'm a big proponent in public safety. I am. I'm a big proponent. I think just the timing of it, I would like to maybe see Baker Act versus arrest. I'm not sure how you can find someone that's homeless, because they homeless. They'll get locked up, they'll come out, and they're going to be homeless again. And like I said, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. So I'm going to be voting on the bill tonight, but I'm a big supporter of public safety.
Councilmember Priestley Jackson, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't on either of the committees that got to hear this bill, and so I don't have some of the backfill, but I can read. And so I read it, and I can read the current ordinance code as it relates to this 804.806. And I think I'll start with what does this new legislation do that 804.806 B and D not do already? And 806B says pedestrians walking where sidewalks not provided, not to solicit rides, certain charitable solicitations allowed. B, no person shall stand or be upon or go upon any roadway for the purpose of soliciting a ride or the sale of anything or service or for charitable contributions or for the purpose of soliciting any business or employment from the occupant of any vehicle unless said solicitation is permitted pursuant to section 804.807. And D says no person shall stand or be upon or go upon any shoulder or berm or any neutral ground or any roadway for the purpose of soliciting a ride, employment, business, or charitable contribution, or for the purpose of soliciting the sale of anything or service from the occupant of any vehicle unless said solicitation is permitted pursuant to Section 804, 807. Herein, neutral ground means and includes any area which divides a roadway or divides the roadway for vehicles driving in opposite directions. Violations of this section shall constitute a Class A offense. And so then I was able to brush up on Class A offenses, which are 10 days and $25 fines. And so I don't understand why we're doing it. You know, I try to live by the edict, you want to love, do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly. So let's talk about the neighbors who just might be in the roadway. You know, 15% of our neighbors live in poverty. That's 150,000 of them. I haven't seen any legislation how we're going to ameliorate poverty in Jacksonville. You know, we have an inordinate number of households that are headed up by women. I keep money in the center of my car to give to individuals who are standing out there. Because if I give with the best of intentions, my responsibility is not what they're going to do past that, but it's very humbling to see folks doing that. And if they're running a scam, they got to answer to that. We're creating a crime for it when we already have something on the books to address it. You know, and the facts about, I think in the very beginning of this legislation, it related to the deaths in Jacksonville. Well, I think that we have other ways that our JSO resources can be used. And I don't see that reflected in this legislation. Let's pull back the curtain and see who we are talking about. Who we're talking about. This is going to disproportionately impact African Americans. I agree with what Councilman Gaffney said, because you will find those more in needs in those intersections. It's also going to be an impact on those of us who know how to navigate the system and those who don't. So you see faith organizations in the middle of the road, so now they're going to go through the process of getting permission to do it. You have young people, sports groups, campaigns. Which of us sitting up here hadn't had somebody waving on the corner in the median of the road? And then the beloved firefighters in the boots, we love that. And then everyday people. And so I can't understand for the life of me something that we know will disproportionately impact those in our midst who are the most vulnerable. That's who's going to be hit by this. But we already have something. Someone tell me what this does. I'm not talking about the new creation for charitable contributions. Tell me what this does that 804.806 doesn't do. And I can't see it. It seems that we spend a lot of time deciding what we're going to penalize people for lately. We've passed a lot of things that relate to creating new criminal offenses. Let's improve the quality of life.
Thank you. Councilmember Ferraro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I couldn't disagree with that more. I don't see it as a color issue. I see it as a safety issue. Having people walking around your car, distracting people at intersections, walking around with pets, walking around with children at busy intersections, and you want to talk about public safety? Man, I can't think of something more dangerous than cars running through there, watching where they're, trying to watch the road, with especially all the construction going on. And now you got somebody who's sitting in a chair with a dog that's on a leash that's going to run into traffic, or you've got little kids walking around. I think this, I think things that have been brought up are important, but we're kind of getting off the track of what this bill is about. It's about safety. It's not about standing on the corner and being able to use your First Amendment. You can still do that. None of that's being affected. This is keeping the transaction from the driver and the person on the street from being able to do a money transaction. That's what this is about. I think, Mr. Carrico, you did a good job explaining that on the radio, and I think Mr. Boylan, you did a good job explaining, some of the other problems that we're having in the city that need to be addressed. But indecision is also a decision by doing nothing, and that's pretty much what's been happening here. We're trying to make sure that this doesn't continue. New York had the squeegee law that happened when people ended up going on intersections and washing people's windows, and nothing happened. And guess what? It started getting to a point when people started paying on a regular basis, and they stopped. The people who are getting this money that you're talking about, where they're doing this as a scam, they started hitting windows and kicking doors. I'm going to tell you, I've been in these intersections where people have jumped out to go get $1 from somebody where I almost ran over them. And I know some of the big trucks and some of the companies that have higher trucks are not going to see little kids and dogs and people walking in front of them because they're not supposed to be expecting that. This is an intersection. It's a roadway. So I'm not looking at this as being attacking a black person or a person of color or any of this other stuff that's coming up. This is a safety issue. We've got children, we've got parents out there, and hopefully they are parents. I don't know if they are parents or not. They could just be using these kids to draw money, just like some of the pets. I agree that we need to help out some of the homeless. That's not part of this bill. This bill is designed to actually do something with people at these intersections doing a transaction. So let's not forget, that's what this bill is about. And I appreciate, Mr. Carrico, you putting this bill forward with all the different problems that came through and all the deferrals and everything that happened with this. But let's not lose sight of what this is. This is a bill to keep our citizens safe and our people driving in the cars. Thank you.
Councilman Bowman, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President, Superpresident, my colleagues. This has continued to be one of the biggest safety issues. It is by far the biggest safety issues that I get called and texts and emails on every day from my constituents. And actually 3 years ago, I met with Office of General Counsel to try to initiate something like this. And the lawyers kept on trying to make it an issue about freedom of speech, First Amendment. It's like, no, it has nothing to do with that. It's about safety for people, and it's about safety of people and vehicles. And we could never get to that point. And I was watching a few counties around the state and kind of waiting to see. I know there's some lawsuits out there, but didn't think to my colleague, Mr. Carrico, appreciate your hard work on this because I think we're in a good spot right now. I want to say something, and I'll talk about strategic plan at the end of the night, but I've got the list right here of all the inputs. We've made a lot of progress on that, and I think we're going to be in a pretty good spot on that, but about 50% of the initiatives are mental health, homelessness, rental assistance, affordable housing, and skills training. So we do, as a council, very much want to help the folks out there that need help. But it's not by letting them be in intersections. So I'm fully going to support this, and that's why I'm a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Council Vice President Salem, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. When this started in neighborhoods about 8 or 9 months ago, we gave Mr. Carrico a pretty tough time. And he brought it back a second time, and we beat him up again. But he was stubborn, and he kept working on it, and I really think he's got a good bill. And I heard his radio show, and I just want to make one point that I have made to him since then. This council funded a mental health offender program. And I was screaming in the radio hoping he would say this. So if this person, which is now a full-fledged program, what's gone beyond my dream of what it would be, but if that person does end up at the jail and they have a mental health problem and they haven't committed a felony, there is a way to divert them out of the jail into a program run by Sulzbacher to get them wraparound services and get them the help that they need. So the person that was with Councilman Carrico on that radio show said the person's going to spend 10 days in jail. They don't have to spend 10 days in jail. They can get help. We have a program that is very unique for this city. So I just wanted to mention that as one positive thing. Thank you.
Councilmember Howland, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am supporting this bill because it accomplishes one specific goal and it has the opportunity to accomplish another. That one specific goal is pedestrian and driver safety, and I get it. Almost too many times to count, I have seen near misses on Beach Boulevard and at all the busy intersections, just as Councilman Diamond mentioned. But the goal it has the opportunity to achieve is to encourage our homeless residents not necessarily to panhandle, but instead to stay at one of our many shelters and take advantage of the supportive services that so many wonderful organizations have to offer in our city. And I know that sounds a bit naive, but I recently took part in the point in time count that Changing Homelessness put together, and I interviewed about a dozen, or a few more than a dozen, homeless folks around town. I understand the barriers to entry at some of these shelters, but if we can still channel folks at some of the shelters that we have with available capacity and then on to supportive services, we can make a real difference in their lives. So along with my yes vote on this bill, I plan to explore ways that we can give opportunities for private citizens and private philanthropy to help get folks off the street and into using these supportive services. Fines and permit fees in the future from this particular legislation could be one of those means of funding this. We could also hope that people could voluntarily give donations for emergency relief. There's also precedent for public-private partnerships here. Greenville, South Carolina's homeless shelters joined with their city in 2019, right during COVID, to place placards around key areas of their downtown, asking people not to panhandle or not to give to panhandlers, but instead to contribute to a QR code which would fund an emergency homelessness service for all the folks on the streets in Greensville. And I spoke with the folks there this morning, and it's working. So as we develop our downtown, our riverfront, we can pursue the same philosophies, and this might be a way to achieve that holy grail that we talk about, which is a funded stream, revenue stream, to get people into permanent supportive housing in our city. So in the meantime, really, there's no need to wait. I've heard a lot of people who challenge this bill saying, I can't give money now at the street corner if this passes. Well, you can always give money. You can go to silsbacherjacks.org and you can give, I think their website says, just $2.89 provides a meal and care. And as we know, the Urban Restaurant now has a mobile service. So we have real opportunities to help folks and get the unsheltered sheltered. This gives us an opportunity to start doing that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I have 3 in the queue. I believe all for a second time. It's going to be Priestley, Diamond, and Pittman. Ms. Pittman, have you spoken for the first time yet on this? Okay, Ms. Pittman, you're recognized. Mr. Carlucci, you fell off. Are you okay?
To my colleagues, I will tell you a lot of my clients who come to the Clara White Mission have been hurt, standing on the sideline. It's almost like they have, it's a job for them. You know, they one take the first shift and somebody take the second shift. But if you come down off of 95 to Kings Road, a lot of the homeless that live either in the encampment area or along the fence, there's an intersection. Those are intersections that they hang out in. And if you come down 95 on 8th Street, you will also see them as well, or Jefferson Street and Beaver Street. My concern and the reason why I can support this is because I am concerned about the safety. And with all of the development that we have coming in La Villa, downtown, I think we need to have a safety program or legislation in place. Now, I don't believe in arresting people. I think, you know, I supported this because it addressed a lot of the safety issues. But I would tell you, my folks don't have $100, you know, to get out. So I'm really depending on, you know, public safety to kind of help get the word out. We got to do a really good job at marketing, especially in those areas that we know that the homeless be. And I want to say this one thing. When we had Tent City and we were able to put the homeless in sort of warehousing, we can't warehouse people, but we were able to transition them off the streets, provide essential services to those individuals, and get them housing and or hotels. I think we just gotta, you know, this is a hard population. It's not something that you could do overnight. Mental health is a big issue among the homeless. Today, I'm really looking forward to the Salzbacher Center utilizing their new bus to not only go downtown, but there are other areas that are on 95 or the intersections that you will see several families and or individuals. So I am supporting this because of the safety issue and because of the issues that I've had at Clara White Mission with some of the homeless being hurt at the intersection.
Thank you so much for that. Councilmember Priestley Jackson for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to be really clear. I said it would disproportionately impact African Americans. I didn't say it was designed to target African Americans. So let's just let the record accurately reflect that. But I do have a question. I might be missing something, Mr. Council President. Can someone articulate for me what this legislation does that could not be accomplished in what's 804.806 B and D, other than the enhanced penalties? Because my read of 806 B and D would cover this, but I'm certain those who drafted it may be able to tell me what it does in addition. Would you please allow them to?
Got it. I believe Mr. Till is here. Mr. Till, can you help us with this question?
Thank you, Mr. President. Jason Teal, Office of General Counsel. So through the chair to Councilmember Priestley Jackson. So what 806 does is it, and under subparagraph D, is it laundry lists out prohibitions for folks to do certain things in the rights of way. First of all, it applies to every right of way in the city. What the new legislation would do is only restrict these activities in the designated roadways, which are collector, arterial, interstate, and intrastate roads, our busiest roads. So local roads, private roads, all of that is still available for folks to be able to participate in these activities. The second thing it does is it laundry lists out the things that are prohibited: soliciting a ride, soliciting employment, soliciting business, soliciting charitable contributions, or for the purpose of soliciting the sale of anything or service from the occupant of any vehicle. It then references, unless such solicitations are allowed under 806.807. Well, as written, 806.807 is unconstitutional. And the reason it's unconstitutional is because of the evolving case law that has developed, including fairly recently, to Councilmember Bowman's point earlier, is that the law is somewhat more established and settled when it comes to what local governments can do. The case out of St. Augustine indicated that you can't just have charitable solicitations be only for folks that are actually registered with the state, which is what ours does, because an individual's right to solicit is protected by the First Amendment. So what we needed to do was we needed to come up with a regulation and a permitting process that would meet First Amendment scrutiny. And that's the process that we've established under the new Part 17 of this bill, is that creation of that whole process. So that's what this was designed to do, was to, in essence, establish 806 for the other sorts of things, but then pull out the charitable solicitation piece, place it in Part 17 so that it could be separately managed, separately regulated, so that we could do the best part, or the best thing that we could do in order to make sure that it was constitutional at the end of the day.
Okay, so you're saying 806B and D is written as unconstitutional. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that the reference to...
Mr. Till, we're going to have you be kind of brief on this response, all right?
Absolutely. So, no, what I was saying is that under subparagraph D, it says unless it's authorized under 807. 807 was unconstitutional.
Okay, I know. So my question was, and Mr. Council President, my question was, what does this do that wasn't already covered under 806B and D? That was my question. What does this do anything that wasn't already covered as an infraction under, or not permitted under B or D? And I can sit down and take that answer.
Thank you.
So, through the President, to the Council, B and D already restricted what folks could do in rights of way. It wasn't fully vetted, fully explored as far as definitions, as far as exactly what that meant, as far as, for example, instead of it saying the median, it talks about neutral ground, whatever that means. So what we did is we bolstered, because part of constitutionality is people have to understand what the law means for them. So we clarified those certain definitions, those certain things, to make it absolutely clear what was prohibited and what weren't, to give a better chance of enforcing this, as well as folks a better understanding of what was prohibited and what wasn't prohibited.
Thank you so much. Seeing the rest in the queue, we're on the substitute. It's been motioned and properly seconded. Please open the ballot and record your vote.
(16 yeas, 3 nays).
By actions, you approve 2022-0574.
Top of page 22, item 49, 2022-0575. Move the substitute.
We have a motion and second on the substitute. Can someone please explain it?
Through the President, the substitute revises the revenue appropriation to $388,083.85, consisting of investment pool earnings of $290,052.27 and interest income of $98,031.58 available within the North Bank CRA Trust Fund as of September 30th, 2022. It also revises the expenditure appropriation to be allocated to future year debt reduction of $100,000 and the commercial revitalization program of $288,083.85. It attaches a revised Exhibit 1 to reflect this updated appropriation and attaches a revised Exhibit 2 to remove DIA resolutions previously addressing North Bank CRA dollars and attach the most recent January resolution to authorize this revised appropriation.
Thank you for that description. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of the substitute, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed have the same right. The substitute carries.
Move the bill as substituted.
We have a motion and second on the bill as substituted. Seeing no one in the queue, please open the ballot and record your vote.
Yeas, 0 nays.
By your actions, you approve 2022-0575 as substituted.
Item 50, 2023-0016. Move the amendment.
Got a motion and second on the amendment. Can someone please explain it?
Through the President, the amendment attaches a revised Exhibit 2 to correct prior year's appropriations for the 5th Street Bridge Replacement Project.
Thank you. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed have the same right. The amendment carries.
Move the bill as amended.
Have a motion and second on the bill as amended. Seeing no one in the queue, please open the ballot and record your vote.
Yeas, 0 nays.
By actions, you've approved 2023-0016.
President, moving on now to item number 51, 2023-17. Move the amendment.
Have a motion and second on the amendment. Can someone please explain the amendment?
Through the President, the amendment revises the total appropriation to $907,724.22 to include unappropriated prior year revenue through September 30th of 2022. It revises the fund balance transfer to an appropriation of prior year revenue at $232,030.66. It revises the loans account balance being transferred to at $887,794.22 and attaches a revised Exhibit 1 to reflect this revised appropriation.
Thank you. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed have the same right. The amendment passes.
Move the bill as amended.
We have a motion and second on the bill as amended. Seeing no one in the queue, please open the ballot and record your vote.
Yeas, 0 nays.
By your actions, you approve 2023-0017 as amended.
Mr. President, turning to page number 23, item number 52, 2023-0018. Move the amendment.
We got a motion and second on the amendment. Can someone please explain the amendment?
Through the President, the amendment attaches a revised Exhibit 1 to identify the revenue within the projects and to correct the account names. It also increases the appropriation by $3,923,379 to a total of $10,413,701.
Thank you. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed have the same right. The amendment carries.
Move the bill as amended.
We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Seeing no one in the queue, please open the ballot and record your vote.
Yeas, 1 nay.
By your actions, you've approved 2023-0018 as amended.
Moving on to item number 53, 2023-0022. I move the amendment.
We got a motion and second on the amendment. Can someone please explain the amendment?
Through the President, the amendment corrects the year in which Waste Management took over the ADS operations and then also attaches a revised Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2 to correct the September 30th, 2022 premise count to 77,167 and identify the October 1, 2022 premise count at 77,141.
Thank you. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed have the same right. The amendment passes.
Move the bill as amended.
We have a motion and second on the bill as amended. Seeing no one in the queue, please open the ballot and record your vote.
Yeas, 0 nays.
By your actions, you've approved 2023-0022 as amended.
Moving on now to page 24, item 54, 2023-0023. Move the amendment.
And a motion and second on the amendment. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of. Can someone explain the amendment?
Through the President, the amendment increases the base rate per premise amount to $23.11. It strikes references to adjustments in the base rate for vehicles added in fiscal year 22-23 and attaches a revised Exhibit 1 to state the October 1, 2022 number of premises at 79,400.
Thank you. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed have the same right. The amendment passes.
Move the bill as amended.
We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Seeing no one in the queue, please open the ballot and record your vote.
Yeas, 2 nays.
By your actions, you've approved 2023-0023 as amended.
Item 55, 2023-0024. Move the amendment.
We got a motion and a second on the amendment. Can someone please explain it?
Through the President, the amendment reduces the appropriation to $445,650.82 based on actual expenditures associated with the Enterprise Security's camera solution. As a result, we attach a revised Exhibit 1 to reflect this reduced appropriation, and there are Scrivener's errors that need to be corrected.
Thank you for the explanation. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Those opposed have the same right. The amendment carries.
Move the bill as amended.
We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Seeing no one in the queue, please open the ballot and record your vote.
Yeas, 0 nays.
By your actions, you've approved 2023-0024 as amended.
Item 56, 2023-0025. I move the amendment.
We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Can someone please explain the amendment?
Through the President, the amendment clarifies in the bill that this amendment is necessary due to the expenditures exceeding the budget authority for JEA.
Thank you. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed have the same right. The amendment carries.
Move the bill as amended.
We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Seeing no one in the queue, please open the ballot and record your vote.
Yeas, 0 nays.
By your actions, you've approved 2023-0025 as amended.
Moving on to page 25, item 57, 2023-26. I move the amendment.
A motion and a second on the amendment. Can someone please explain the amendment?
Through the President, the amendment corrects various Scrivener's errors. It clarifies within the waiver of Code Section 118-107 that the Hubbard House and the Center for Independent Living Jacksonville were specifically named in the grant application. It attaches a revised Exhibit 2 to attach the correct grant award letter, attaches a revised Exhibit 4 to correct the subgrantee funding agreement, and then attaches a revised Exhibit 5 to correct the grant budget.
Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Those opposed have the same right. The amendment carries.
Move the bill as amended.
We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Seeing no one in the queue, please open the ballot and record your vote.
Yeas, 0 nays.
By your actions, you've approved 2023-0026 as amended.
Item 58, 2023-0027. Move the amendment.
We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Can someone please explain it?
Through the President, the amendment clarifies that the funds are being reallocated and as a result strikes the appropriation language and removes the Exhibit 1. Attaches a revised Exhibit 2 to correct Potter's House fiscal year 22-23 contract amount from $865,000 to $1,369,583. And it also includes an amendment of Budget Ordinance 2022-504's Exhibit 5 to reflect this additional increase in the Potter's House budget.
Thank you. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed have the same right. The amendment carries.
Move the bill as amended.
We're motion and second on the bill as amended. Seeing no one in the queue, please open the ballot and record your vote.
Yeas, 0 nays.
By your actions, you approve 2023-0027 as amended.
Item 59, 2023-0033. Move the amendment.
We have a motion and second on the amendment. We have one person in the queue, but can someone please explain the amendment?
Through the President, the amendment clarifies that the funding source for this bill is general fund balance. It also clarifies that the funding will be used for salaries, benefits, and Internal Services for this newly created Division Chief position. It amends Code Sections 117.111 and 117.112 to update the reference from an Office of Grants to the Division of Grants, and then corrects various Scribner's errors.
Thank you. So we're currently on the amendment. So you're on the bill. Ms. Clark-Murray, are you on the amendment? Or on the
No,
bill?
I actually wanted to say something regarding the previous bill, but don't worry about it.
I'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. So we're on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed have the same right. The amendment carries.
Move the bill is amended.
We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Councilman Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to rise and explain why I was excited to co-sponsor this. I said this in committee, but I think it's worth saying again. This council has got a lot of criticism over the last couple of years on how we spend money, in particular when it comes to nonprofits. And so I commend the administration for jumping on this and doing what has to be seen as a really strong, good government bill that simply makes it more clear how we're spending taxpayer money. And that gives us more efficiency, it gives us more focus, and frankly, it gives taxpayers at home, when they see that a nonprofit here in Jacksonville is getting money, they've got some faith that the money is being spent and being monitored by an organization that's specifically said to make sure grant compliance is happening. And so I think that's moving to a position of strength. So again, commend the administration for that, and happy to support it.
Councilmember Priestley Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say that I am encouraged to see this, and I support this legislation. And I mentioned that the Rules Committee, when it came before us, and thank you all so kindly for giving me my visual. I'm a visual person, so the org structure. But I know that the city has brought in so many grants, from the COVID-19 pandemic to recovery and relief funding to everything else, and I think this is a very proactive move and measure, because you will anticipate that volume of grants coming in going forward, probably in different buckets. So thank you so much for this, and thank you for building up that particular department and making certain it has dedicated attention.
Council President Freeman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, through the Vice President, to my colleagues. I'm in support of this bill tonight, and I'll tell you why. One, Dr. Grass has been someone that we all know at KHA, when we had to get into the weeds of issues, was always able to go there, probably stay a little longer than most of us wanted to, but get us the information that we needed. So that I am pleased with. Also, apprenticeships, jobs, that's really been workforce. It's really been something that's important to me this year. I was just in the meeting today with the Walton Foundation face to face, and I can't tell you how proud I was to tell them that we have an apprenticeship department, someone that is specifically working within our city government, focusing on trying to go out and find grants like the Walton Foundation to match with the dollars that we're going to now capture from the JUMP bill. And I shared that with them, with the excitement that, one, the synergy between KHA, because they're the ones that are leading it, and now with Dr. Grass in the grants department, that is going to, and they assured me that that position that we created as a council will be utilized and will be tasked with going out and finding opportunities to match those dollars. So I'm excited about this opportunity today, not only for what it does with the city and creating that division, but what it's going to do for kids and for folks that are looking to reenter, second chance individuals looking to reenter our workforce, and for adults that are looking to do it. So thank you so much. All right, seeing no one else in the queue, we're on the bill as amended. It's been moved and properly seconded. Please open the ballot and record your vote.
$18 yeas, 0 nays.
By your actions, you've approved 2023-0033, and a point of privilege here, we're going to go back to item 58, and Councilmember Tarona Clark-Murray, you're recognized.
Thank you. Through the President to the Council, just to talk about that particular bill, thank you for supporting it. One of the reasons I decided to be a co-sponsor is because specifically off of Kings Road, that was one of the areas where you had the previous cure violence located actually off of Myrtle and Moncrief. And so that area was like a hot spot. There was open prostitution, open drug use, open drug selling, and several drug trap houses. And so with me being the council representative for that area, it just, I cannot begin to express how my heart was hurt knowing that also my grandparents lived in that area. So to see that area deteriorate to the extent that what did really hurt me. So I've spent the past 5 months in that area working to get those elements out, and it is better. I wouldn't say that the elements are completely gone, but it is better. And so we know that crime doesn't stay in one place. It moves. And so we have a shift more to the west side where you're going to have more like maybe the northernmost part of the west side where Cure the Violence is going to establish itself now at the Potter's House. So this is going to help with the gang element that's rising up and with, of course, our regular types of crimes, weapon use, drug use. So I'm glad to see that this particular institution that is moving to that area so they can help to solve those same types of problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Floor Leader.
All right, that takes us to page 27, second reading of ordinances that allow for public participation. Madam Clerk, please read those bills.
2023 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, and 43.
And we have no public participation cards. That takes us all the way to unfinished business, which we've already accomplished. So that puts us at the addendum on page 45. Move the addendum.
We got a motion and a second on addendum. All in favor of the addendum, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed have the same right. The addendum carries.
That is the end of business, sir.
Thank you so much. It's been a late night, and so I'm going to ask Legislative Services if we can get roll call, and then we'll close out with prayer.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Chaplain, will you please close us out?
Yes, thank you so much. Precious Lord, thank you for this evening. Thank you for this day. Thank you to all of the relationships that celebrate on Valentine's Day, including mine, 30 years with my husband. Lord, bless us as we head home tonight. Keep us safe and keep our family safe. Amen.